What up, folks? Welcome back. Today we're talking about the pros and cons of being a wedding photographer and myths versus reality. Let's get into it. All right, so you want to start your wedding photography business and you've heard a lot of great things and a lot of expectations, but you want to hear about what it's really like to own a wedding photography business. And I'm here today to give you some reality versus the expectations that most people have. I like to start off with the pros because I'm a very positive person, and let's get into it. So first of all, I will say I love wedding photography. I love being a wedding photographer, and I love owning a wedding photography business. So even though I may be giving you a dose of reality and it may sound like I'm being negative and poo-pooing some things, I just want to put it out there that no matter what I say in this video, I love wedding photography, and I think it's a great aspect for you to get into. Many people have the misconception that the market is oversaturated, and even here in Southern California, there are a ton of wedding photographers, but there's always a piece of the market for you to fit in, and there's always a way to niche down and differentiate yourself from the crowd to get you to stand out and to book your own wedding. So I'm here to give you some of those tips. I'm gonna be putting out more videos on that, so stick with me. Let's get into some of the pros. So first of all, the money. So what everyone starts out thinking as a wedding photographer, you're thinking cha-ching, cha-ching, bling, make it rain. The money is good. I do like the money in terms of wedding photography. And when you look at it as wedding photography versus other avenues of photography, you're gonna see that there's actually an exponential jump in the amount of money you can make. So let's just give an example of a headshot photographer here in LA. So if you're a headshot photographer, you're probably charging $299 or $399 for a headshot session, and you're gonna be shooting maybe 2 or 3 hours. So it's a small amount of time, plus editing an hour, delivering the photos. It's gonna be easy edits, but you make, let's say $350. Let's average it out. So $350 for about 4 hours of your time. Whereas I'm shooting a wedding for about 8 hours and I'm charging $3,000. Now that doesn't come into account the editing portion of it. So that is a big jump in time. And if you break it down hourly, wedding photography is not gonna be the highest amount of money per hour. But looking at the big picture here, if you're in photography and you're gonna be shooting headshots versus weddings, you're gonna see an exponential growth. In fact, if you're here in this situation, you're gonna see a 10 times jump in the amount of money you can charge. However, there are reasons for why you're making so much money and why you can charge so much money. And I'm gonna get into that, but more so in the cons. So in terms of money, you do make a good living. You can make a lot of money as a wedding photographer. It's especially good as supplemental income. If you're working a full-time job or you're doing photography for something else and you wanna book some weddings on the weekends, well, you could book 1 or 2 weddings and be able to pay your rent or your mortgage for the month. And so it's a very good business in terms of supplemental income. In terms of what you can actually make, I wanna give you some practical value here. Let's say my average package for wedding photography right now is about $3,000. And that can fluctuate depending on my packages and different things I'm trying in the business and times of years and those sort of things. But let's just say on average, $3,000 for a wedding. I then need to pay a second shooter. So I shoot all my weddings with second shooters. My second shooters make anywhere from $400 to $600 depending on the time needed and the demands that I give them. So that drops down to, let's say, $2,500 in profit now. I then need to talk about maintaining gear, subscriptions to different software I need to deliver my galleries, any type of prints I need to take into account. You know, you need to factor in other bills such as like internet service and the computer costs and those sort of things. So overall, I tend to take off another $500 just in normal expenses. So now I'm down to about $2,000 in profit. Now you take taxes off of that and you're averaging about $1,600 per wedding for profit. So that's not bad money net. So we're talking net at the end of the day once all bills are paid, $1,500 per wedding. Multiply that out, let's say you do, 3 or 4 weddings a month, and now you're talking about math. You're talking about $6,000 in net profit off of doing 4 weddings per month. So that's pretty good money. They can actually make a pretty decent living. So if you could do that over the course of 12 months, you're talking about $72,000 in net profit for being a wedding photographer. So that's not bad money in comparison to doing, some of the other professions that you can do out there. And that's only doing 4 weddings a month. So that's only 1 wedding on average per weekend. So it's actually not bad. In terms of money, it is a very good living, especially in comparison to other avenues of photography. A lot of photographers out there make really bad money. If you're a music photographer and you're shooting concerts, or if you're a sports photographer, a lot of those guys shoot even for free. just to get access to the field. So in terms of overall money when looking at the industry, wedding photography is an excellent avenue in my opinion. Another pro that I really like about wedding photography is you're never in an office really. You're always going to different locations. Whether you're meeting new potential clients, you can go to different coffee shops or however you want to set up your meetings. And then when you're on location at weddings, you're never at the same location, multiple times or very rarely so. So especially for me here in Southern California, you're at these beautiful beach locations. Many times you're outdoors. That's going to change depending geographically where you're located. But for me in California, I'm always at an outdoor wedding. I'm always seeing beautiful sunsets and good weather and many times on the beach. So I don't want to, I don't want to be talking to the wedding photographer in Michigan because that can change real quick. Another thing I really like, piggybacking on that, is it's not predictable. You never know where you're going to go or what location you're going to be at, what the wedding is going to be like, what the weather is going to be, who the people are. You're always in new locations and doing unpredictable things. So in terms of stimulation and not being bored, wedding photography is definitely that. It is anything but boring and you're always running into different things. Another pro I have for wedding photographers is, this is gonna sound a little cheesy right now. You're always around love. And I am a romantic type of person and I just love the environment that weddings are most of the time. Everyone's in a good mood, they're partying, they're having fun, they're drinking, they're dancing, they're letting loose, they're celebrating, and they're celebrating love and a union, and it's usually a beautiful thing, and many of my weddings are just fun. They're just fun to shoot, they're fun to be around, they're fun to be a part of. I mean, you are part of the wedding day, you're a staple to that bride, you're with her all day long, so a lot of times it's just fun. It's a fun environment and it's fun to be around. That can change depending on your bride and depending on the day and how it plays out. That could change real quick, but I'll say majority of the time, it's just a beautiful environment that you're in. So I really enjoy that. Moving on down the pro list, I love the fact that you're actually doing meaningful work. In my opinion, you're taking photos that actually mean something. They're very meaningful to the couple. They bring great value to that couple for their entire lives. I mean, many people look back at their wedding photos forever. So I love that aspect of things. I like to think that, if a couple is going through a tough time or a difficult day or a tough situation or they're struggling in their marriage, they can look back at a framed photo that I took that's up on their wall and they can remember the beauty and the love that filled that day and the reasons why they made those vows and why they committed to each other. And to me, I think that's very valuable and very meaningful. So it gives me a sense of purpose, gives me a passion for doing wedding photography. So that's something to really know going into it. If you're just doing it for the money or something like that, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You have to have a reason and a passion for doing it. There's probably a lot more pros, but the only thing I took note on lastly is you build a really big network in wedding photography. So you meet so many people. You're around people all the time and you're constantly meeting and interacting with new people. So let's just take an average wedding where the bride and the groom have 5 people in their wedding party on each side. So now you're talking about 12 people just in the wedding party that you're interacting with the entire day. And many times by the end of the day, I feel like I'm homies with these people. Like we're friends, we're exchanging numbers, we're texting, and we're just building relationships. So your network builds very quickly, especially when you're talking about, meeting the mom and the parents and then their aunts and the uncles and extended family and friends. And I have clients that text me all the time that are still friends with me right now. So wedding photography expands your network and you meet a lot of new people and you're always around interesting people. So I think that's a big pro. Enough shiny rainbows and sunshine. Let's get into some of the cons of being a wedding photographer and owning a wedding photography business. So when I go through these cons, I really don't want you to be discouraged. And I'm not trying to say these things to make you not get into the business, because again, I think it's a great business and I think it's a great industry. I really just want to give you realistic expectations and know what you're getting into, because I did not. And many times wedding photographers don't paint a realistic picture of what the industry is really like. So first of all, my very first con is that many times going into it, people don't realize that wedding photography is extremely demanding. It's demanding physically, it's demanding mentally, it's demanding emotionally. And let me explain why. So physically, it's kind of obvious. You're on your feet a lot. You're carrying a lot of gear on you. You're constantly in a shooting position. You're shooting for 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours at a time. You're shooting back-to-back weddings a lot. So just physically, your back hurts, your neck hurts, your legs are tired, your feet are sore. It's just a very demanding industry and you don't get a break. So that's a key thing. It's not like other businesses where you get your 15-minute paid time off and your 2 breaks and then you get your lunch break. You don't get that. Your wedding photography, you work around the client's schedule, and if they give you time to break, then you get a break, and many times you do not get a break. Now, mentally and emotionally, how do I want to break this down? Let's talk about mentally. Mentally, it is demanding because you cannot make a mistake. There is zero room for error. You cannot miss a photo. You can't get a blurry photo of her coming down the aisle. You can't miss her throwing the bouquet. I mean, there's so many shots that you cannot miss, and there is no room for error because you cannot get those moments back. They happen once. They are some of the most important moments in that bride's entire life, and those are the moments that she's looking to you to capture. So mentally, it's extremely stressful in that there is zero room for error, especially in the learning curve when you're shooting your first couple of weddings. You're gonna be nervous as hell. You're gonna be stressed out the entire day. You can alleviate some of that stress by preparation and some of the tips that I'm gonna give in more videos to follow, but overall, just mentally, it's very demanding. On top of the fact that you're constantly thinking of so many different aspects. Wedding photography is so unpredictable and you have very little control of the environment. Unlike other photography situations where you're in a studio with lighting and background and you can control everything, in wedding photography, you don't know where you're gonna be. You don't know what the sunlight's gonna be. You don't know what the lighting inside is gonna be like. You don't know the timing and how much time you have and what's gonna be happening and what runs late. So just overall, it's a very unpredictable environment, and so mentally it can be very, very challenging. Emotionally as well. So emotionally, it is a very, very stressful day. So you can come some highs and lows throughout the day. It's gonna happen and no wedding day is perfect. And so you have to stay pretty even keeled and calm throughout the entire day because you're with your bride. Most of the day you're by her side and the bride feeds off the photographer and everyone around her. When I promise you that things can get really crazy really quickly in weddings, I'm not joking around. Things can go awry so fast and the bride can go from being so happy to being hysterical crying in her dressing room like that. So you have to stay pretty calm, pretty even keeled, and just emotionally that kind of takes a lot. By the end of my weddings, I'm usually in my car drinking water and just taking a second to breathe and a sigh of relief that the day is over. And that happens about 99% of my weddings. I usually need to stretch. I usually take a hot bath and I usually just chill because it's such a demanding day and I'm just so tired overall. I just want to go to sleep. Another con I have is that many times in majority of my weddings, I feel rushed. Now this could be me personally, it doesn't have to be you. Throughout the day, a lot of times the timelines run late and timing in a wedding is so crucial. And I try to talk it through and plan and prepare as much as I can with my couples and the wedding coordinator and the wedding planner. But things always go wrong and weddings always run late. It's a stereotype for a reason that weddings never start on time. So in a normal situation, that wouldn't be a big deal for the guests, but for me as a wedding photographer, that just crunches the amount of time that I have and the amount of light I have to get the photos I need to shoot. So many times you're not in control and you're always rushing. Another aspect of this is that it depends on your couple. If your couple really wants to mingle with their friends and they're having a good time, they're not gonna wanna step away to get the couple's photos that you guys discussed. So many times you're feeling rushed and that just adds to the stress of the day and it doesn't allow you to have as much creative freedom to get the shots that you really want to get. So there are so many weddings, I can't even tell you, where it was the most beautiful setting with a beautiful sunset and perfect. I remember one in Malibu specifically that I shot with a business partner and I really wanted to get these shots. It was like beachfront in Malibu with the sun setting on a perfect day with clouds and it was just the most perfect setting you could ever ask for. And we were too rushed. The bride wanted to get to the next activity and wanted to start the dancing early because she was just having so much fun. She didn't want to get those photos and I didn't get to take them. And I'm sad to this day. That is another con of being in the wedding business is many times you feel rushed throughout the day. The day goes by like that. You wake up and then you don't even realize that you missed a ton of the shots that you wanted to get. Another big con of the wedding photography business side of things is that you're actually always selling. You're really a salesman and I'm gonna tell you why. Weddings is one of the rare industries where repeat customers is not a common thing. I mean, hopefully most of your weddings stay married, they enjoy their marriage and they don't come back. So the only repeat customers you're gonna get in terms of photography is, you know, if they have a baby and they want baby photography or family photos, or they refer you out to a friend or someone in the wedding party is also getting married. That's not really repeat customers though, that's more word of mouth referrals. So you're constantly in a churn and a sales cycle trying to land more clients and talking to potential clients and hunting for that next close. If that's not something that you want to do, then this is the wrong business for you because you are constantly doing that. You're constantly looking for new clients. Another con is just business operations in general. So you really don't understand the amount of time it takes to run a small business until you actually are in the business. Wedding photography is no different. You have to do the sales, like we talked about. You have to do the marketing. You got to be constantly posting photos and interacting with customers and putting yourself out there. You have to know what you're doing in marketing. Then you have to email your potential clients. You got to do customer service for any issues. You got to schedule out your second shooters and assistants and other vendors. You got to work on your insurance with different locations, and logistically, just business operations in general takes up a lot of time. I would say you're shooting about 10% of the time and you're working on the business about 90% of the time. That includes editing in there, which is a big chunk. But overall, wedding photography, a big con is that you're not constantly shooting photos. In all actuality, very little of your time is given to shooting photos. So that's a con for many photographers, and that's something that people don't want to do. A solution to that while I'm talking about it is if you want to be a photographer that shoots more than you work on the business, I would say second shooting is a very good option for you. Now, second shooting is when you work for me. I am the main business owner. I book a wedding. I deal with the client. I hire you to be my second shooter. So you're shooting alternative angles that I can't get. You'll be with the groomsmen during their prep sessions and I'm with the bride. So being a second shooter is actually really fun. You shoot through the day, you drop your memory cards, you give your photos over, and you're done. There's no editing, there's no delivering photos, there's no sales, and you can still make $400, $500, $600 for 8 hours of shooting, and then you go on to your life. So that's a great option for people that don't want to deal with all the business operations. I highly recommend that avenue for you. In my opinion, another con of wedding photography is that your photography highly depends on the clients you book, and I'm going to explain myself. So many times I'll be on a location shooting a wedding with perfect settings, perfect venue, perfect lighting, perfect scenery, perfect decorations. I mean, everything is just perfect overall. And my clients are super nervous and anxious in front of a camera, and they just aren't enjoying themselves. So now those shots just pretty much go down the drain unless I can get those clients to relax and loosen up. And many times on the wedding day, you don't have time to get them to do that. So it's highly dependent on the clients that you book and how comfortable they are in front of the camera and how much experience they have and how invested they are in the photos. I mean, there's some couples I book that they just don't really care that much about wedding photography. You're there to document the important moments of them exchanging vows and rings, but they don't care about the portraits and the candid photos, and they don't really care that much. Or it's just the parents that are more important to them and they just are getting married for their parents. So the photos are just whatever. So a lot of times the overall product that you get at the end of the day with your photography is not just dependent on you, it's dependent on the clients that you book. And you never know how they're going to be until you get them in front of your camera. So that can be a con for some. Your creative and artistic expression is really hindered by certain clients. Touching on another con I have is you have to be really good with people. And I say that because you're going to be interacting with a lot of different types of people and you're going to be doing a lot of customer service and customer interaction. Let me explain what I mean. A good example is many times you will run into a bride with unrealistic expectations going into the day. And if you don't temper those expectations beforehand and communicate really clearly and effectively to your bride, you will set yourself up for failure. Example, the bride's dad owns a boat and she wants to go out on the boat and get some photos right after the photo ceremony at sunset. But her ceremony ends at 4 o'clock and the reception starts at 6 o'clock and sunset sets at 7 o'clock. So realistically talking, the timing doesn't work out unless she's willing to leave her reception, which could be at a completely different location, drive to the boat, get on the boat, take those photos, work out all that timing, and then be back at a reception probably an hour and a half or 2 hours later. It's not gonna happen, right? But if your bride goes into that day with those expectations and you don't temper those and explain to her the situation very clearly and get her to shift and be able to move off of her plan, you're gonna set yourself up for failure. So being able to communicate with your customers and being good with people is a necessity. And if that's something that you don't enjoy doing and you're more the artistic type that likes being behind the camera, this is a big con for you because you can't get around that. You have to be good with people. I don't know if it's so much a con as just something that you need as a wedding photographer. You gotta know photography like the back of your hand. You can't be a beginner jumping into this because you will just miss shots and you will make mistakes. You really have to know what you're doing. It's gotta be almost innate muscle memory. Almost has to be second nature to you to adjust your shutter and shoot full manual and change your aperture. And oh, I need to change this lens out to get ready for this shot. And I need to have the flash ready for the cutting of the cake that's gonna happen next. I mean, you have to just be going there. But once you do dial it in and you get the hang of things and you know what you're doing and it's almost second nature to you, whoo, that's when this really gets easy. And that's when you really take off as a wedding photographer and you could focus on creativity and interesting shots and locations. Ooh, I want to take them there and I want to get this shot, rather than thinking about what lens I need to use and what settings my settings going to be for this. And oh, my focus is a little bit off. And ooh, I missed that shot. It's a little bit soft. Can't be thinking of any of that. It just has to be second nature. So that's something to think about. But overall, I want to close with this. If you enjoy being around a party setting and love and joy and happiness, wedding photography is for you. If you're good with people and you're good artistically with a camera, wedding photography is for you. If you like owning a business and you're artistic and you enjoy people, man, this is the perfect business for you. So it's almost a no-brainer. So wedding photography can be very lucrative. It can be very rewarding. It could be a great avenue to check out if you're a photographer and you are a romantic and you enjoy that type of setting. It's a very good business, so I wouldn't discount it by any means. No matter what the cons are or the pros are, again, I wanna just give you some realistic expectations, so I hope I did that. So that's all I got for this video. If you enjoyed it, hit me with a thumbs up and please subscribe. I'll be dropping many more videos on starting a wedding photography business. I hope you enjoyed. Talk to you soon. Peace.